Ho ho, I bet you motherfuckers are excited for this one. So, this video, I want to dedicate it to Showtime. All use of these clips is protected under the Fair Act use, whether you agree or not. Whether you send me emails telling me that you don't agree and that at this time you're not going to be pursuing any further legal action, whether you call my phone from the phone number. Oh, here, let me give it to you guys. Everyone on YouTube, go ahead and blow this fucking number up. It's 212-975-4239. 212-975-4239. The guy, he's a lawyer for CBS. He's been calling me and harassing me about my Regis Prograis video, telling me that I put up the full round. He didn't even watch the fucking video, right? He called me and harassed me for like 20 minutes, telling me that they might try to take legal action and trying to tell me that, they don't agree that that's protected under fair use and that I'm illegally using their video and whatever, you know. Anyway, so I'm going to do this video in honor of fucking with them, you know, and I'm sick of them sending me goddamn, you know, emails and calling my phone and talking to me, trying to bully me into not putting my videos up and not putting them out. So call that number, you guys. Let that guy know. I don't want to show the rest of my email, like all my email stuff. Otherwise, I would show you guys that email. You know what? I'll put up in a separate video. Maybe if I get that petty, I don't know. But these guys, they just keep harassing me. They just keep trying to take my videos down. They keep, you know, bullying me, you know, and trying to tell me that I can't do this and that. And, you know, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Anyway, so we got this special video. Now, I picked Kell Brook to win this fight. I thought that he would have the easier time landing punches. For those of you that didn't see my like video series on it, it started off with tools, right? A lot of people make a big deal about Errol Spence because he's fast, he has great technique, he punches freaking hard. But there's a difference between all that stuff looking like a great fighter, right? And he does, man. He has the look of a great fighter, and having the skills, you know, the skills of a great fighter. And for those of you that have been following the channel, and you're getting used to looking at film study, and you're getting used to like what you're seeing, right? You're not going to be fooled anymore. You know, we're going to go over this, and it's going to be really easy to point out the flaws, not only in Errol Spence, right, but in Brook as well. You know, because Brook had a hand in allowing Errol Spence to win. You know, Errol Spence, who I deem as, you know, a kind of a limited fighter, a very, very good limited fighter. But we'll get to take a look at all the things that neither fighter is doing right and ways that they could be, you know, upping their game in this regard. You know, and one of the things that I thought that would make Kell Brook more successful than Errol Spence, number one, I thought he was going to clinch more. I think people made so much out of the clinching that he didn't use any clinches. He didn't control Errol Spence when they were on the inside. He didn't grab him and tie him up like he's done in his previous opponents, like he did to Sean Porter. You know, people call him, like, you know, that he hugs and stuff, whatever. I mean, control your opponent, right? That's all you're doing, controlling him, right? It's just another way to say it. You know, just that's the most common. You know, it was a style that was really popular in the early 2000s with Freddie Roach's gym. But anyway, I thought that he would, and I thought that he would, his left hook over the top was going to be a huge money punch for him all night. He went with more of a cross kind of style in the fight, and we're going to kind of get to look at that. But Errol Spence did a lot of really good work on the inside. People said that he won, you know, because of body shots or whatever, you know. I don't know, man. Like, did he go down from body shots? Did he, you know, I don't know, you know. I don't want to say, like, well, I'm not even going to say it. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get into the fight, and I'm going to have to make a lot of pauses so the video doesn't get picked up by the automatic flagging, right? Oh, yeah. I made this video on Josh Kelly and his last opponent. I made it 3 times, you guys. I made it 3 times. The first time I accidentally deleted it. The second time... sorry, that was my mom. Love you, Mom. The second time, it got flagged for the copyright stuff, so I didn't release it. And then the third time, it just kind of went a little too long for what I wanted, and I don't think that it was very concise. I got a little high before I did it, and I didn't put it out. But I uploaded the video. It could be, like, it's not out. Like, I didn't release it because it got blocked in some countries, and I think that's actually all the countries that give a shit about him, Josh Kelly. But anyway, he's a pretty good fighter. I'll probably do the video on him. I'll wait for his next fight. I'll do it on his next fight because I don't want to watch that shit again, man. Like, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe I could do the other rounds, you know, the rounds that I haven't done film study on. But anyway, pretty good fighter. I gave him a C+ overall. Needs to learn how to set his punches up. Needs to learn how to control his opponents after he throws combinations. So not telegraphing his shots and getting countered, because he gets countered quite a few times in that fight. But he has great head movement otherwise in his active guard. And great at cutting the ring off. If you watch those first few rounds, you know, people might not know. Man, I don't want to talk about this because I go over it in such great detail in the video. But anyway, pretty good fighter. Great talent. You know, he's got a lot of places to go from there. So getting into this fight, if you notice right away, the feints, right, comes out. Errol Spence using his lead hand. Look at his active guard, right? This is very uncharacteristic for Errol Spence, right? And it's not super active, but it's more active than normal, right? And then right away, he gives away, whoops, I'm hitting the wrong fucking button, that's why it's not working. Kell Brook gives away his plan, right, is to counter over the jab, right? And Errol Spence shoots it so far away, right? Like, what is he hitting with that, right? He's not hitting anything, but when you don't know how to set your punches up, right, and no one's ever taught you the art of really feinting or probing or using your lead hand, right, because it's such a popular school in boxing that you need to bring your hands back. Don't leave your hands out there. Keep your hands up all times, you know, that fighters like these, like Errol Spence, these tremendous talents, they learn the fundamentals for amateur fighting, and then they try to bring them over to the professional game where they're just not applicable, where you're not fighting for points, right? You might land 60 punches in one round, but if you ain't got no mustard on them, one guy's going to land one good shot, you know, and take you out, you know, and that's a product of you not setting your punches up, right? Sure, you can be fast, but timing beats that, right? Real boxing skills beat that. I don't really like the way that amateurs are trained anyway. I think they should be trained for the professional style. That's what I really like about the Eastern Europeans, because they just grow up with that style, you know. But anyway, getting into it, you know, look at Brooks when he shoots that jab, though. He puts all his weight on his lead leg, right? I don't really like that. Kind of causes him to get stuck there, right? Interesting that Errol Spence is backing away too, right? And he doesn't have it's not the most active guard, but it's a little more active with his lead hand than he usually is. So he's learning, he's getting better. Right there, great shot right there, right? Shooting the jab. And it's kind of like a scraping jab, right? It's very difficult to throw a straight jab at an opponent who's like orthodox when you're a southpaw, because their glove is just in that line, right? So it's kind of a scraping jab, and he's doing it while he's moving back, because Kell Brook has already shown that his game plan, and if you watch any tape of Kell Brook, you already know that that's how he fights southpaws, is countering the jab, countering the lead hand. And then Errol Spence does something great after, using his lead hand to control Kell Brook after, right? He already shot his jab, right? But bringing it out there, you know, just make Kell Brook think maybe something, you know, maybe he's going to throw a 1-2 instead of just a 1, right? Ducking down, you know, and this is interesting, right? So he's giving him different looks, you know, ducking down a little bit and then shooting the jab. You know, they kind of step on each other's feet a little bit, but I like that in this instance that Errol Spence isn't, even though he's not feinting, he's not probing, he's not setting his shots up, right? But he's shooting the jab from a distance that's far enough away that he can get similar information from his opponent by baiting reactions from Kell Brook. Right? Even though this is not this is like a baby step toward these more higher level fundamentals, right? And I really like that he's going here with it. Now, one thing that I want to point out is that neither fighter is really controlling the distance between each other, right? Obviously, Kell Brook, his strategy right now is to counter Errol Spence, right? So he doesn't want there to be any control over the space. He doesn't want there to control the space because he wants Errol Spence to go first, right? But what he's not doing in that regard is he's not baiting the punches from Errol Spence. And the reason for that is because we already know what he wants Errol Spence to throw. He wants Errol Spence to throw the jab, right? So he's not controlling the space, right? He's not got like a super active guard. Like if we turn our eyes to Kell Brook, right? Not super active. His head's not moving. He's not controlling Errol Spence. He's not controlling Errol Spence's lead hand, right? And he's allowing him to shoot that jab, right? And this is very interesting too, because look at how Errol Spence always steps with the jab too. Right, that's going to be something that's going to be very important for his next few fights, right? Especially if he winds up fighting someone like Terrence Crawford. And we saw what Terrence Crawford did to someone who had that style where they could only step with their jab. He knocked them the F out. This is going to be a really interesting fight too because Errol Spence is huge, right? I mean, I saw a picture of Crawford at 177 and the dude looks shredded. Shredded. But whether he's going to be as big in the ring, right, or as strong in the ring as Errol Spence, they're about the same size, but Crawford just looks he doesn't look as strong as Errol Spence, so it'll be very interesting to see how that kind of plays out, that size. But I do pick Crawford to beat Spence. Off of skills alone, Again, right, I picked Kell Brook to win against Spence. But Errol Spence's, size, determination. Kell Brook's like a lack of a little bit of punching power, just a little bit, right? But mostly Errol Spence's kind of, this is the best time to ever say this. It was that dog in him. But anyway, Errol Spence able to pull it out because he just wanted it more. He was just tougher. I don't think he had the skills as high as Kell Brook, but he was able to come out of the fight with a win. Now, interesting here, right? So Kell Brook coming in, shooting the jab, and it gets caught. It gets controlled by Errol Spence's jab, right? But Kell Brook shooting that shot and then shooting a 2 at Errol Spence's glove, or a 1 at Errol Spence's glove, and then another 2, right? Very interesting because he's also figuring out that that Errol Spence is looking to counter him as well, so trying to bait the counter or whatever, Errol Spence doing a good job of measuring and kind of learning from Kell Brook and kind of figuring out where he wants to go from here, and doing a good job of controlling Kell Brook, right? So controlling that lead hand as soon as it starts coming out, right? And then moving away and not really letting Kell Brook set his offense up. Not getting caught in a trap early, but really making Kell Brook kind of give out his cards. Shooting that jab, and now this is something that I really thought was going to be a much bigger play in the fight, and I think it does pick up a little bit in the third and the fourth rounds. But Errol Spence not setting his shots up, right? Stepping in with that jab, and he kind of steps down into the inside of Kell Brook, right? And this is another thing that I really don't like from southpaw fighters. I don't like giving up lead foot dominance, right? Because boom, he gets caught with a shot right there. He's not in a super dominant position, but because of the fact that he is on the outside of Errol Spence, he's just got a little bit more range, right? And he's able to catch him with that shot. Now, one thing I want to talk about, you guys, one of the reasons, right? Now, let's just pay attention to how fast this fucking jab is, right? Look at how fast that hand is, right? And Kell Brook is still able to get his glove in there, and I think he touches Errol Spence. It's not a super hard knockout punch, right? Don't matter, but you don't want to be giving your opponents these shots. But one thing that a lot of fighters or a lot of coaches say is bring your hands back. Bring your hands back. Look at how goddamn fast Errol Spence is with this jab. Can you bring it back any faster, right? Granted, he does swoop it down as he's taking his step back after, right? But how do you bring it back any faster than Kell Brook can counter? You can't, right? And that's why you have to control your opponent after. And that's one big flaw in Errol Spence's game, is that he hasn't figured that out yet. That you can't just work on your half of the fight. You have to figure out a way to disrupt your opponent's half of the fight. And I think that's a brilliant way to say it. Working a game plan for your fight to disrupt your opponent's fight, right? That has to be part of it. Controlling them, feinting them, making them out of position, right? You can't just work on your half when you go into the gym and hit the mitts and this and that, right? But anyway, some good feints from him, right? So he gives him a feint, boom, and then he shoots the jab. And again, right, it's not right after the feint. He's thinking he knows how Kell Brook is going to react, right? And now look at this. This is really interesting, right? So he shoots that feint, and it's almost the same as his jab, right? He comes in, boom, like he's going to get down, like he's coming in, right? And look at how Kell Brook reacts. He pulls away, right? And then takes a step back, right? And then he shoots a jab, and Kell Brook pulls away and takes a step back again. What did Errol Spence learn from his first feint, right? What did he say, what did he learn that made him think he was going to land that jab? I'm not sure, right? Like, was it, I'm not even going to like bullshit, right? It just wasn't conducive for him to throw that jab after, right? Maybe he's just trying to condition Kell Brook to not respond to the jab by feinting him. And that's his game plan right now. Or that's one of the tactics that he's using. But anyway, moving on, right? Notice that neither one of them are controlling the space between them, right? Obviously, I already talked about how Kell Brook wants to invite Errol Spence in so he can counter him, but he would be able to do that so much more effectively if he were to take Errol Spence's lead hand away and not give him such a short punch to throw, right? Such a straight shot, right? And we'll see evidence of that later when Kell Brook does start to get tagged by that lead hand. But if he were controlling that lead hand by using his own lead hand, he could bait Errol Spence into throwing power shots with his rear hand and walk him into some really big shots. And that would be a much more effective way to lead, or to go second. Now this is good right here. He goes for the body shot, and immediately Errol Spence goes to control him, right? Now, well, we're not going to talk about it. We'll talk about it if it affects the fight later. But coming in, again, not really setting up his jab, right? He shoots that jab, and I think it does touch Kell Brook's chin. Let's see. It looks like it might. I'm not sure. But again, not setting it up, you know. He does understand that the counter is coming, so he needs to move back, right? But that's not how you want to defend yourself, right? Obviously, it's very smart that he understands that punch is coming and to move away from it, right? But again, you need to set your shots up, right? So that you can actually land them and you're not just punching at air. Shooting the jab again, and then Kell Brook going over the top. And I do like this, right? So after the jab, boom, he shoots the jab over the top, but Kell Brook is leaning in and almost walks into that second punch, right? That second jab. So it looks like Errol Spence is setting him up for that. And I do think, I haven't watched this fight since I was so brutally scarred and beaten over the head in my own comment section after the fight. But I do remember an instance where Errol Spence shoots the jab, rocks back away from the counter, and the counter comes, and he rocks back away from it and then catches Kell Brook with another jab. Woo. So shooting the jab and now baiting it, right? Because that's not a real jab either, right? But again, Kell Brook is not leading. He's not controlling his opponent. He's effectively right now, he's being a bystander in the fight by not really dictating anything that Errol Spence is doing, right? Whereas Errol Spence is the one that's dictating everything, right? Even though like Kell Brook is the one moving forward, right? He's kind of a bystander in his own fight at the moment. There you go, controlling the lead hand a little bit, showing him. But look at how their heads are on the line. They're not really moving a lot. They're just kind of standing in front of each other, and neither one of them is really controlling the other. Boom. Now, what happened here? I'm not sure if... I think what's happening here is Kell Brook is flashing the lead hand so that he can get that reaction. You know how Errol Spence has been, whenever Kell Brook shoots the jab, Errol Spence has been controlling him after the jab. Not countering, but just putting his lead hand out there. And I think that right now, Kell Brook has picked up on that, and now he's looking to turn that into a form of offense. I'm going to kind of pick it up a little bit. We're 20 minutes in, only 1 minute into the round. Ooh, okay. So he shoots the jab, shoots the counter, knows that the second lead hand is coming too, and then goes for another shot himself. But look at how he's off balance right here, right? Because he's not turning his weight into his shots, right? He's getting all of his weight into his left leg when he shoots these punches. And he's kind of a little bit off balance, you know. Cutting the ring off, right? And then Errol Spence has to move on to the line. Boom, and he's able to land a body shot. You know, not a lot going on there, but ooh. Now, the distance is starting to be close. And again, boom, you're never going to get your hand back faster than the counter. That's why you need to control your opponent, right? Close the distance. Smother them. You have to control them. You have to do something because when you do, especially when you don't set your punches up, especially because you're just going to be getting caught with shots. Now, it's not a big shot, right? Kell Brook is still working out his timing, but I love this from Errol Spence. Boom, he gets caught with that shot and then brings his gloves up to catch the straight right hand that might be coming while he ducks away, right? Very smart. But again, you know, look at how they're standing in front of each other after that shot. Neither one of them is controlling the other, right? They don't have the most active guard. It's very small, subtle movements, you know, but neither one of them is committing to a motion, right? Transferring their weight to make their opponent think something is really coming. Neither one of them is really feinting the other one. They're just kind of giving these little, like, I don't want to say nervous energy kind of feinting, but that's what it looks like to me. And then Errol Spence shooting that jab. And now it really looks like, you know, because it's not a real jab, right? It really looks like he's waiting for that counter. And it looks like he was trying to set him up for a shot right there. A little bit of feinting. But look at how their heads are both in the same spot. You know, now I understand from Kell Brook's perspective, he wants Errol Spence to see his head there. He wants Errol Spence to be invited in so that he can land his counters. But why is Errol Spence's head sitting so firmly on the line? Anyway, so this is interesting. Shoots that jab to the body. And now we kind of see where Errol Spence was going with that lead hand, right? Remember, he sticks the lead hand out. And this time he gets it around Kell Brook's head, right? And then throws some uppercuts. You know, a little bit dirty, right? And this would make me believe that it's not dirty of Kell Brook to hold him. Right, especially if he's gonna be worried about being held behind the head and hit with an uppercut, especially from a beast of a puncher like Errol Spence. So Kell Brook, ooh, now Kell Brook's starting to figure it out too, right? Feinting this jab, knowing that the counter is coming. He does get clipped with it, right? But then going with the hook after, right? So they're both picking up on each other's patterns, and Brook is kind of, you know, even though he got caught right there, Brook is kind of, I don't want to say next leveling him because it makes it look like he won the exchange, but mentally he's a little bit farther in the process than Errol Spence at the moment. And again, you know, no control, neither one of them controlling the space between them, and Errol Spence just feels completely comfortable shooting that jab, boom, even though he knows the counter is coming and he's trying to pull away from it. Again, Kell Brook is getting closer with that counter jab. And I'm not sure. It looks like this one lands, but you can't really tell. You know, it doesn't look like it lands in real time, but it looks like it touches him in slow-mo. But I can't really tell. But it's not important, right? The important part, now, that's interesting too to say it, right? It's not important that it's not landing, right? But it'll be important against future opposition, right? But if it's not important in the biggest fight of his career, and this was a genuinely big fight, like this was a huge fight, you know, what kind of fighters are going to make it important? Well, number one, any fighter who actually controls the space between them, right? Because of the fact that Kell Brook is not controlling the space, he's not as apt to knowing when Kell Brook is going to be actually committing and throwing punches, right? Because Errol Spence is very quick, he's very quick, but he's getting to everything that he's doing, he's getting to do on his own rhythm and his own timing, exactly how he trained it, right? Because he's not having to worry about any of the influence that Kell Brook has on him, on his person, and on his style. So I hope that makes sense, but I'm going to move on anyway because we're like going pretty slow. I'm going to do 2 rounds too, guys. 2 rounds today, guys. 2 rounds. So now this is really interesting. So I talked about this a lot in the build-up, and so far we've seen Errol Spence throw his lead hand, right? He's thrown a jab and then gotten away from the counter, right? And then sometimes he's gotten hit by the counter. But one of the biggest things that I saw in the build-up to this fight when doing film study was that Errol Spence likes to throw a lead hand, right? Come on, motherfucker. A lead hand. Oh no, it froze. And then another lead hand, right? And then swing a huge left hand, right? Either to the body or to the head. But he has it's a very telegraphic, how do you say that? It's very telegraphed, right? It's always the same thing. It's 2 lead hands, and he takes lead foot dominance while he does it, and then swings a huge left hand. And Kell Brook, doesn't pick up on it in this instance. But the reason that it's effective in the first place is because Kell Brook is not controlling the space between them, right? So if you go back to this situation right here, he feints him, right? He gives him I'm going to put this in slow-mo. Maybe we'll just do the whole thing in slow-mo. That'll be a little easier. So he feints him, right? And then sees that that Kell Brook is looking to take a step back right now, right? He's not looking to counter at the moment, right? Maybe he's trying to switch up his game. Maybe he's trying to lead, right? So bait the jabs from Kell Brook or from Errol Spence by shooting his own jab so he can count over the counter, right? And then his mind is not actually just countering them, right? So he's trying to next level Errol Spence, but Errol Spence is figuring out, if he's not trying to counter right now, I can feint, right? Again, notice that Kell Brook didn't shoot a counter. Excuse me. And now he shoots a jab. And then another controlling lead hand, right? To control Kell Brook's lead hand in case he does try to counter. And then throws a body shot right there. It looks like it just wraps around Kell Brook's elbow and lands on the body. A great shot from Errol Spence, but it was very telegraphed. And if Kell Brook did any film study, he would have been able to pick up on this very easily. And I thought for some reason that this was going to be a very easy style of offense for Kell Brook to mitigate because of his counter left hook. But he doesn't do the greatest job in that instance of mitigating it. So this is really interesting. And again, because neither fighter is controlling the space between them, right? Kell Brook is able to come in, feint him, right? And immediately get Errol Spence to leave his lead hand out there, right? And then duck under the next one, baiting both of those shots. And that's because Errol Spence is not controlling the space between them, right? So because it's a reactionary type of control, right? And it's good to have any kind of control over your opponent. But because it's reactionary, you can do the same thing. You can feint your opponent out of position and make them do that. For those of you that watched the build-up to Vasily Lomachenko versus Guillermo Rigondeaux. Rigondeaux was doing the same thing to James Dickens, right? He would stick his lead hand out there, and then James Dickens would look to control that lead hand, and Rigondeaux would shoot a straight left right over the top of it. And this is very similar. This is a very similar problem that Errol Spence could wind up falling into later on during the fight because he's so active with that. Ooh, now this is really smart from Errol Spence, right? Shooting that jab, right? And then knowing that Kell Brook is going to shoot that counter, right? And looks to control him with his lead hand after and then land a body shot. I don't really like the fact that he's wrapping his arm around Kell Brook and then holding him right there and throwing punches because Kell Brook hasn't really tried to hold him either yet, right? But Errol Spence is the one really holding and making sure that Kell Brook really can't get away from him. To be honest, it's really smart, like anything that you can do that you can get away with, like I know that there's a guy in the comments section. I used to have a lot of debates with him about it. But while you don't ever want to be dirty, right? You also don't want to wind up being Sergey Kovalev. There is nothing more defeating than not getting paid for a fight and then getting knocked out, and losing the fight because of fouls or because of this or because of that, So, protect yourself at all times, whatever. I don't want Errol Spence to be doing that stuff, but I'd rather see him do it than see, if I'm his coach, than have Kell Brook do it, right? Or have Kell Brook be the one that's holding and mitigating your offense in that regard. But anyway, we're going to move on. We don't need to talk about like dirty stuff too much. Again, now Errol Spence, again, using the same type of pattern, right? He knows that counter is coming, so he takes lead foot dominance, ducks the counter, and then comes in with some body shots and then holds him around the waist. Kell Brook misses with his counter very wide, right? And gets his arm on his head, right? And, Kell Brook doing the right thing. You don't want to let that guy come up in that spot, especially a guy who's as good on the inside, because you can kind of see, look at all these punches he kind of takes once Errol Spence gets on the inside. But a good adjustment so far from Errol Spence, understanding that counter is coming and off of that shot, taking lead foot dominance. It's actually something that I missed during my first run through the fight. Shooting that jab, waiting for the counter coming, and I'm not sure what he's going to counter with there. But again, right, one of the flaws in Kell Brook's game, not setting up his shots either, right? And it's interesting because I think that he had shown a lot of control over his opponent in his previous fights when he fought, I think it was Frankie Gavin. I'm not sure if I don't remember exactly if that's who it was that I did film study on, but he did show a lot of lead hand control, and I'm surprised that he hasn't been showing it in this fight. Anyway, so this clip gets kind of chopped, but he shoots this lead hand, takes lead foot dominance, and then comes in with a right hand right behind it. Again, taking advantage of the fact that Errol Spence looks to control Kell Brook with the lead hand by sticking it out there, right? And he's able to bait him into doing it and land a right hand. Good job from both fighters in this round, to be honest. And now Kell Brook's first counter right hand, right? Errol Spence goes to shoot that jab. He doesn't set it up and then walks into a right hand. I think that he kind of ducks it or comes out on the side, but again, that's not important, right? It's the fact that his jab is so telegraphed that he almost winds up walking into a big right hand. So this is going to be a huge problem for him. But again, we don't know what kind of condition Errol Spence is going to be in his next fight because he's been training with Lil J, right? And Lil J, looked like a... to be honest, you can't really say too much of him fighting Erickson Lubin. I called Lubin for being very green, and I said he was very green, and knocked him out in the first round, with a very easy setup shot. But because those two are training together now, we don't really know where Errol Spence is going to be in his next fight. A lot of these flaws may be ironed out. He may have had to up his game enough to not have a stale guard. Oh, and again, having a stale guard, right, even though he's moving his head, right, because it's predictable, right, oh, he's ducking down because a punch is coming, right, because when you only move your head reactionarily, your opponent always knows where it's going to go, right, when you start slipping a shot. So he gets caught with that shot right there. Anyway, moving back on. So you can't really see it, but Kell Brook's starting to get his active guard here. Boom, dipping to the left, right? Dipping back to the right, dipping to the left. And I can't see what Errol Spence is reacting to, but I have a feeling that it's just Kell Brook using an active guard, right? Just ducking down, boom, duck down to the right a little bit, and then ducking down, and then he baits Errol Spence into controlling him, into bringing his arms away from him because he thinks something's coming, right? And that's what I was talking about earlier. When you only control your opponent reactionarily in that regard, you can get baited into controlling them and eating a shot. So Errol Spence coming in, shooting that jab, and then Kell Brook looking to slip it and shoot his own counter right hand. You know, not a bad shot. You know, it doesn't land, right? But it's good that he's switching it up to get away from the left hook, because Errol Spence has been able to get in on the inside on the left hook and land body shots. Even though he's kind of getting in right there and landing a body shot again, it's good that Kell Brook is changing it up and looking to change his counters. Errol Spence, I think he was controlling him a little bit. There you go. It's a good jab right there, right? Just control him a little bit. Baiting the counter, right? Figuring out where Kell Brook's mind is at. And then a great job right here. Just having an active guard, right? Dip to the left, dip to the right, dip to the left. And he's able to get away from that jab before it even comes, right? But Errol Spence takes lead foot dominance off of it, right? Probably expecting a counter to come, but he ducks the counter right here and is able to take lead foot dominance, and it looks like he lands a really good body shot right there. And again, not really setting his shots up, right? And when he does go to the head, easy slip, and then doesn't land anything right there. And that's the folly of not setting your punches up. Decent counter from Errol Spence right there. Now this is really interesting because it's the exact same thing, right? So he goes to bring his lead hand out there, and then I think he expected Kell Brook to shoot a jab, right? And then Kell Brook takes away that control from him and shoots a right hand right down the pipe. You know, it looks like he might get kind of tagged by that, like, kind of pushing left hand right there, but I really like that Kell Brook is looking to throw punches when Errol Spence is looking to control him, right? So Errol Spence looks to control him with his lead hand, right? But I don't think Errol Spence understands all the places you can go from that kind of control, and winds up losing the control, the space that he has controlled right there. Ooh, and now Kell Brook really coming into his own right here as Errol Spence uses that lead hand, steps in, and then then Kell Brook is able to land a clean, straight right hand on him right there. And I don't think they'll show it in the highlights. I don't know. I think they only talk about his keys to victories. Yeah. So we'll move on. But so far, the first round, Errol Spence doing a good job of reading Kell Brook and picking up on him and his strategies. You know, he's not doing it in the way that I would suggest to do it, right? With the feinting and the probing. He's doing it in a lot of very dangerous ways by committing to his shots and committing to his punches to get that information. But it is very important that he's picking it up, that you understand that he knows where Kell Brook is going with the counters and with his reactions. And then also Kell Brook making some good adjustments too, moving to the right hand. Very fun fight. It is a little less exciting when you're watching it without the sound, because the crowd was just insane in this fight. But again, you know, a very basic style of offense, flashing that lead hand, bringing his hand down and throwing a body shot. You know, he didn't really have any success going to the head with his left hand in the first round, except when he held his head, right? Ooh. Still stepping with his jab right there, telegraphing it. And then Kell Brook feinting him. I think he's trying to get him. He's trying to bait that lead hand again. Ooh. Now, very good, right? As soon as Kell Brook Errol Spence starts controlling him, he goes to lean in and land that shot. You know, not bad. Let's kind of break that down a little bit more, right? So, again, Errol Spence, I don't think he knows what to do with this control, right? When he sticks his hand out, I don't think he knows what to do, because he just baited the reaction from him that he should be looking for, right? He got Kell Brook to lean out to his left side. He should be throwing a straight left right on the button right there. He's got Kell Brook right where he wants him, but he's not countering him. He's not even like whipping his lead hand back to throw a right hook, right? He just kind of gets baited and then gets baited into kind of pushing Kell Brook away to control him, right? And he does a good job right there, and then comes back with the body shot that misses, right? But it shows us that he doesn't really know what to do with that control. He's still learning it, right? Kell Brook coming in, and again, neither of them really controlling the space between them, and Kell Brook easily able to just kind of explode out of his guard and throw those right hands. Errol Spence, super quick with that jab. Now let's look at Kell Brook. So Kell Brook has this like slip, boom, right? And I'm not sure. Let's really watch Errol Spence right now. Okay, because there has to be a telegraph, because Kell Brook slips that just so slightly, right? I think what it is Kell Brook stepping, or Errol Spence stepping. If you watch his steps, boom, step with the left leg, step with the left leg, and then he goes to shoot a shot, and Kell Brook is able to kind of time it and slip away from that jab ever so slightly. Let's watch it in real time again one more time. Sorry, guys. Was he... You know, it looks like it touches him, right? It looks like it touches him. Ooh, but there you go. So again, shooting the jab, knowing that the counter is coming, and then shooting the counter for the counter because he knows the counter is coming as well, right? So Errol Spence doing a good job there in understanding what his opponent is going to be doing, making the right adjustments, but not really controlling them very well or baiting them with the correct punches either, right? Because if he knows the shot is coming, right, he could just straight up bait that shot in the first place and catch him with the left hand, right? So why is he not doing it like that? And the answer is because he doesn't have any control over Kell Brook. You know, he doesn't understand how to do that in a safe way, right? Because of the way that he does it, right? Because of the way that he does it. Whoops. Did we miss that part? Oh, what the hell? Because of the way that he does it, the way that he gets Kell Brook to move out of position is by completely committing to his jab, so he doesn't know how to do it in a way that's safe, right? Even though he does land a great shot, right? But it's just showing like some of the limitedness of Errol Spence. So I think he's just ducking down right here, and he's able to bait him into thinking it's going to be a right hand to the face, and then he lands a shot to the body. But again, that's only happening because Errol Spence is not controlling the space between them. And again, neither is Kell Brook, right? Because Kell Brook wants him to come inside. Feinting him. Oh, again, beautiful from Kell Brook right here, right? And this is one of the reasons why controlling your opponent reactively and not proactively is bad, right? He's able to feint him and bait Errol Spence into bringing his gloves out and then throw that right hand. It doesn't land, right? Errol Spence moves back, but that's not the point either. Now look at how close they are, right? And neither one of them are controlling the other, right? They're not using an active guard. They're not using a lot of feints, right? There's like some minor feints, right, from Errol Spence with his lead hand right there. But look at how close they are. And Errol Spence, again, shoots his jab and commits to it hard. He only knows how to throw one jab, you guys, you know, and walks into that counter and then almost walks into a right hand. I think he probably would have if their feet didn't get tangled up right here. But he does correct it and then wind up, you know, throwing a couple punches. But this winds up being a really interesting round to break down. Again, Errol Spence is kind of exploding out of his guard, not setting his shot up, but punching with head movement at least, and then ducking to get away from the counter, bringing his shoulder up, right? Kind of sliding in there. He doesn't land his left hand to the body this time, but, you know, at least he's protecting himself responsibly from the counter. Now, this time he doesn't do that and winds up just walking straight into the counter that he should know is coming, right? Boom. Look at this. This is a perfect example, you guys. You're never going to get your gloves back in time against a professional fighter, against another man who trains to hurt people, right? Against some fucking clown in the street. Yeah, you could just put your hands up and, you know, and bring your jab back real quick. But against another guy who's practiced this who's seen it a million times too, right? Kell Brook is way faster getting his hand out there than Errol Spence is bringing his hand in. Nobody trains bringing their hands back in, right? You shouldn't either. Don't let that little part of philosophy deter you from looking to control your opponent by just training to bring your hands back. That's stupid. But anyway, that's a really interesting thing too. And there's a clip, if you guys want to Google it real quick, of Ryan Garcia, a phenomenal talent from Golden Boy. And you see him training with his new coach and throwing punches on the heavy bag. And if you watch him throw punches on the heavy bag and his coach yell at him, bring that hand back up, bring that hand back up, you can kind of see that this kid's not really going to go anywhere. You know, he might wind up becoming a world champion, but he'll never be, you know, he might be able to do the De La Hoya thing where he gets a bunch of titles and gets to move up and fights some soft competition and gets his Golden Boy card, gets his Golden Boy judges, you know. But, I mean, he'll be like a Danny Garcia, right? But obviously he's better than Danny Garcia. Like, not better, but like, he's faster. He probably is going to hit harder than Danny Garcia later on in the future. But he'll be like a glorified Danny Garcia. But you'll see that evidence in the video. Now, if you watch the video I did on Lomachenko, he doesn't bring his guard back, right? After he throws a punch, he controls the bag, and that's exactly what he does in his fights. Anyway, tangent, my bad, guys. So shoots that jab again. He's not setting it up, right? No feints. He gives him like a slight feint before, right? Like, with a step, and then steps in with that jab, takes lead foot dominance, and isn't really able to make anything happen in that instance, you know. But again, not setting his shots up, right? He does get to land that one again because Kell Brook is not controlling him. Kell Brook is not dictating when Errol Spence gets to throw punches, right? By controlling him, by using feints, by making him stay at home and fight in a style that he doesn't train in, right? Or from angles that he doesn't train in. And it just allows Errol Spence to kind of come in on his own. And this is like probably the best fight you could ever watch to understand why it's so important to control your opponent, right? And why it's so important to set your punches up. This is just a phenomenal video to do film study on when you really break that kind of stuff down. That neither one of them are controlling the other one after their punches. Well, Kell Brook kind of is, right? So when he misses his shot, he controls his head like that. That stops Errol Spence from really utilizing the information that he has about Kell Brook, but there's not a lot of it. And we get to see what happens. It's interesting because we get to see what happens when Errol Spence doesn't do it, and we're getting to see what happens when Kell Brook kind of does do it, right? And he's able to kind of smother his offense and not allow him to really throw punches, although he does get that good body shot in right there. Again, countering, and this is exactly where Kell Brook wants to be, right? In his all of his film study and all of his everything, he wants to be countering it, but Errol Spence has already made the adjustment to kind of duck down and get on the inside. I can't really tell if that's a really low blow or not, but it doesn't matter. We'll move on. Now, this is a really interesting moment in the round. I think I remember this. This is where Kell Brook Errol Spence starts moving forward, but he doesn't do it with any punches. He doesn't do it with any control. He's not using his lead hand very well. Wait, maybe not yet. Again, shooting the same shot and then coming in with the body shot. He does eat the first counter, right? But I think I talked about this too in the build-up, that Errol Spence does want to be trading with Kell Brook, and that any punches that he takes coming in are worth it as long as he's landing as well, because fighting on the inside, I think he's going to be a better fighter and land harder shots. So he does do a good job right there. But again, when Kell Brook misses, he controls Errol Spence's head. And while some of those shots might look like they're big body shots, if you're not really able to whip your body into them or your head's being controlled, you're not going to get any real power into them. You don't want to get hit, right? But you're not going to be able to land like very, very solid shots. Not bad right there from Kell Brook. So, again, Errol Spence not controlling him, not countering either, winds up eating that cross, right? And then he takes the body shot right there. But he's a few of the mistakes that Kell Brook or Errol Spence is making right now. Number one, he's not controlling the space between them, right? He's not using his lead hand, right, and making Kell Brook worried about the left hand, right? And he just allows Kell Brook to kind of come in and throw these shots right here, right? And he doesn't move off the line, right? Notice after these punches start coming, boom, he doesn't move off the line. He doesn't have any head movement, right? Notice his head stays in the same spot. You know, he doesn't duck, he doesn't roll, he doesn't slip any of those shots. He just brings his high guard up and does nothing, right? Again, that's probably my biggest criticism of Errol Spence, is his lack of head movement, is his lack of responsible defense in that regard, and just taking an active, approach to not getting punched in the face, which is going to be a big problem when he fights somebody like Terrence Crawford. I might give him the edge against Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman showed some really high-level skills if you watch the fight with him and Collazo. If you watch the fight between him and Collazo, he showed some really high-level skills that he doesn't show against right-handers. But again, left-handed fighters, left-handed versus right-handed, understanding positioning is just so much more common knowledge than it is left-handed versus left-handed or right-handed versus right-handed. People just don't understand that a lot of those skills are still transferable. You just have to go about them in a different way. So Keith Thurman shows some pretty high-level skills, in spite of the fact that, he might be a little soft to that body, and that might be the biggest reason to give him the advantage over Keith Thurman. But again, a very limited offense, right? Now, Kell Brook is being able to... Errol Spence knows that the counter's coming. He shoots the same jab that misses, right? Grazing shot. It's not landing. Kell Brook is able to go over the top and adjust for the head movement that, or the responsible defense that Errol Spence is using, right? And land a shot over the top, right? But again, and then great work from Kell Brook after that shot, right? Beautiful. He controls him with his forearm, right? Gets his defense for the body shot, and it looks like, let's see if that lands, I might even turn the audio on to find out. It looks like it does. It looks like his glove does kind of slow down right there at the end of it. It does look like it lands, but it's still really good defense from Kell Brook. You're not going to be able to stop all of his punches, right? And it would be better if he landed that shot and then instead of just keeping his defense off, he moved off the line. That's another thing that Kell Brook really didn't do in this fight that caused him to take so many counters and caused him to take so many extra punches. Notice that in this is like exactly the worst thing that could happen for Kell Brook, right? Even though he lands his shot and he does control him, right? He still eats a shot from a huge puncher because he stays on the line with him, right? He's doing a decent job of controlling him, right? But it's a little different when you're left-handed versus right-handed, right? It's a little bit different because especially when he's countering a punch from the right side and he's controlling the right side of Errol Spence's body, not the left. He's not able to stop the left hand from coming in that instance. And then again, Errol Spence coming in with the same shot. It doesn't look like there's a lot on it, right? And then Kell Brook throws his first right hook. Ooh, and I love that, right? He misses the right hook, right? Controls him with the lead hand, right? Beautiful. Takes a step off the line and then throws that right hand. Fuck! Really high-level stuff right there. Boom. And misses the shot, right? But that's not important. It's very nice to see that Kell Brook's got that. Let's watch that shit one more time. It's so nice. Boom. Even though he loses that exchange, he still gets hit with the jab, right? Comes in, slips that shot, and tries to throw an uppercut. I like where his head is at, right? Let's see if we can get that going again. Ooh, nice. Bonus. Slipping. And again, this little exchange is derived from how easy it is to bait Errol Spence to get out of position, right? Because the only way he knows how to control the space between them is to stick his lead hand out, right? And we've seen how ineffective that is. And another way to think about it, right, is if you guys watched my film study on Shabransky versus Kovalev, right? Shabransky only had one way of controlling the space between him and his opponent, and that was to throw a jab, and then he got knocked out with a right hand over the top, right? This is a very bad sign for for Errol Spence because he hasn't adjusted this at all, right? We saw it early and I liked it, right? But he hasn't evolved it at all. He hasn't understood that he could preemptively start controlling his opponent, right? And bait those shots. And he's kind of just getting walked into it now. Even though he doesn't, Kell Brook doesn't land the shot, that's not important. It's how easy it is to get him to throw it, right? So a more crafty fighter like Terrence Crawford might make Errol Spence make a lot more mistakes in that regard. Again, so his head staying in the same spot, the straight right hand comes, right? The left hand comes after that, and Errol Spence doesn't move his head at all, right? And Kell Brook is able to get away with just throwing his punches because Errol Spence doesn't control Kell Brook at all. Dude, doesn't Errol Spence look fucking huge? Jesus Christ. So again, the same offense, right? Kell Brook not really able to make any offense off of it, controls his head, and then is able to shut him down. I like this right here. So even though he eats that jab, he shoots that one, right? And then moves off the line, right? This is something he needed to do much earlier in the fight to prevent Errol Spence from landing those body shots. Sees the jab coming, gets baited into it, and ooh, there you go, Kell. Move off the line, bro. Errol Spence walking forward, no head movement, no counters. And this is not really a punch, you guys. This is creating space, right? But look at how Errol Spence doesn't really react to it. You know, he's just walking forward. Kell Brook is controlling him, but he's not even using his jab right here. He gets caught with a hook right there, but that's the same exact hook, right? It's not really a punch, right? He's only doing it to create space, right? I mean, I don't want to get clocked in the head either, but look at how he does it, and then he uses that to turn himself off the ropes, right? It's a very popular tactic from Erislandy Lara, right? And fighters like that, very popular from southpaw fighters usually. Mayweather did it a lot, like with the check hook style, right? And you do it to make your opponent bring their guard up, and then you push them off, right? So that you can move off the line, right? And it's just so that you can move, right? It's not a real punch. It's not supposed to knock the opponent out, right? I think Roy Jones Jr. used to do it, but, you know, that guy had insane power, right? Very, very gifted. Even though I don't think his actual boxing skill was that high, and which is one of the reasons why I've kind of been neglecting doing a real film study on Roy Jones Jr. because I don't want to break anybody's hearts. But yeah, it's not a real punch, you guys. Again, right? Errol Spence not moving his head, right? And he's able to just throw punches at him. You know, I know what Errol Spence is looking to do here. He's trying to get on the inside, right? But because he has only one jab, right? And we saw in the first half of this round that Errol Spence wasn't really able to get any work done as much as he was in the first round, you know, which was a very close round. I think when I watched it live, I gave it to Brook, but I think, you know, watching it now, I give it to Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence did better work at the end of the first round. And I'm not sure, I actually haven't been thinking about scoring this one at all. But right here, beautiful from Kell Brook. And this is what happens when you don't control the space between you and your opponent, right? Kell Brook is able to just throw punches at him, right? And we know that Errol Spence is not really a counter puncher, right? But because he's not even looking to control the space at all, he winds up getting clocked by that left hand. And then Kell Brook, and look at, Kell Brook is able to just throw pity-patter punches, right? Boom, control him, and then throw that uppercut to get him to bring his head down or like block it, right? And then throws the left hook and moves off the line, controlling him with the lead hand. And look at how easy this is for Kell Brook right now when he's just opening up, right? He's not just relying on his counters, he's actually pushing forward. And that's a big weakness in Errol Spence's game, that he doesn't really have to... there's not a lot that he actually has to do, you know, because he's always the one going forward, right? So many fighters are so afraid of him, right? Again, not controlling Kell Brook at all, so he's able to just slip and throw a hook, right? Throw a right hand, throw a left hook, throw a body shot. And that's because Errol Spence has no control over his opponent. God, I hope I didn't play that too long. and then it's going to get picked up by Showtime. That copyright shit. Again, same thing. And now Errol Spence kind of realizing that he's not getting the best of that. Controls him. Oh, and then Errol Spence doesn't control him, right? He doesn't feint him or probe him. Walks into a big right hand right there. Not bad, you know. Interesting fight, you guys. I think that's the end of the round. Shoots that jab, ducks maybe the counter, throws a body shot. Some good work from Spence right there. But, oh damn, over an hour. But anyway, interesting fight, you guys. I am going to do more rounds of this. I might do the whole fight. I'm not sure. We'll see how much time I have to do it over the course of the next week. Let's see. But yeah, interesting fight. You can really see why it's so important to control the space between you and your opponent. It might feel dangerous. Like if any of you guys are boxers, right? Don't fucking worry about losing a sparring session, you guys. Don't worry about it. That's the worst thing you can do, right? Put your headgear on, get your mouthpiece, and tell your opponent, hey, bro, you know, let's just take it, 40%, right? Don't throw any hard punches, and just be okay with learning, right? Getting punched in the face is a learning experience. Get in the ring with your opponent, and I promise you, as soon as you stick your left hand out in front of their face, they're not going to know what the fuck to do. They're not. They're just going to start using their head movement, moving backwards, right? They're just not going to understand what to do. And so just try it, like right before you go to throw a punch, right? You know how you feint them, right? And then they're like, oh, this motherfucker's trying to set his punch up. I'll just take a step back. So feint him again, right? But always have those kind of feints and that active guard and that head movement and that stuff. Always have that kind of stuff going, one form of it or another, right? So do like slip to the left, slip to the right, roll under, right? And then bring your left hand out, right? And then probe with your right hand, boom, walk forward, throw a right hand out there, but like a soft right hand where you're just going to touch his glove and see how he reacts, right? And then roll, right? Roll under as you take a step forward, right? And then throw a lead hand out, boom, roll under, take a step, step while you're moving forward. And you're going to get your opponent backed up on the ropes. And he's not going to know what happened. They're just not going to do it. Controlling that space with your active guard and your head movement and your lead hand, it's so valuable. And you can see in this fight, exactly what happens when you don't. When you don't control that space, your opponent's going to punch you in the face. Even in Kell Brook's case, in which he's baiting them, he wants Errol Spence to throw that jab so he can counter it. He's still getting caught with shots every now and then, much more often than he wants to, right? And also, he's still getting hit with the follow-up left hand, right? He should be moving off the line after his counters, right? Or controlling Errol Spence a little better, right? By throwing that counter and then stepping in, right? Maybe shifting and bodying up with Errol Spence. But you can see how a lot of those flaws kind of just cause you to take a lot of punishment, that you just don't need to. Anyway, I'll be doing a couple more rounds of this at least, probably 6 rounds at the minimum. But we'll see with my work schedule and with whether or not this one gets flagged immediately or not. But anyway, fuck you, Showtime. This is protected by the Fair Use Act for commentary, criticism, and educational purposes. As soon as you guys and your commentators start learning and understanding how to comment a fight or commentate a fight and talk about real boxing skills, I won't have to do this. I won't have to show you guys up. Anyway, thanks, guys.